name's Bart. Welcome back to another lap guide video. Today we're taking the FIA 4 car around the Sebring circuit. Here's the hot lap. Alright, so going down the main straight now, heading to the first corner at Sebring. Really tricky track with this car, especially because we haven't got power steering. If you've got a DD wheel or something with quite a lot of force feedback, you're going to feel the bumps here. So just be aware of that. It is quite a lot of fun though. But yeah, it is going to be pretty tough on your hands as well. So first things first, let's use all the track. We paid for it, we're going to use it. So you can see here the wall kind of deviates to the right hand side here. There's painted bit ends and it goes that way. So just make sure we're pointing in this direction, not in line with the wall this way, because you're just going to give up a lot of time on the first corner, which is a corner that always feels kind of very, even though it's a big, wide, fast corner, you always feel like you're on the limit there on the exit. Really help that by let's getting over to the right-hand side nice and early. Using all this track here, so you can see here, getting over to the right-hand side, turning in just where these rubber marks are, really short brake. Very hard for exact braking reference. Like, so you've got these lines on the track where these bits of rubber are. They're kind of good references, but generally here you're going to be just looking into the apex and trying your best to spot that. So biggest thing with this corner is getting on the early side, right? Getting on the early side and also trying to roll good speed and make it all the way to the inside. I think here quite often people, because it's a big, long, wide corner, people go a bit late on the brakes. They go a bit too fast in, they turn in quite late, and you end up never meeting the inside of the track. You want to be right up near the wall, really, on the inside here. So, see here, pretty close to the inside wall at this point in the corner, and that's really what you want to be aiming for, right? So, fifth gear, getting close to the inside, looking in, you can see it almost cutting where the yellow line is here on the left-hand side. That's really how tight it should be, if not even tighter. Main thing here with this car is it will want to understeer if you hold the brake too much. So make sure you do a soft brake and it's not too late. If you kind of rush it, you'll just push on and then maybe snap, right? And you'll start sliding the front. So let's just come off the brake, use the steering lock, and then you should be able to plant the throttle pedal, especially on this fixed setup. It's quite stable. Plant the throttle pedal like that. If you're slow onto throttle, we get understeer. So here we need to really be aggressive on getting to full throttle very quickly. Force yourself out to the right-hand side of the track here. You can even dip a wheel on the dirt, and you actually won't get off track if it's not too bad. So don't be afraid to push that. The punishment's not too bad. Really important there to get a quick exit. Worth quite a bit of time. Into the second corner now. Just make sure we're in line with this little kink with how the road goes to the right hand side here. So in line with the white line. Braking is basically just after this first white line where these 3 cones are. Use that as your reference. Just after that, fairly heavy braking. Down to 3rd gear. This corner, I'd say most of your lap time comes down to being able to roll speed through. So heavy brake initially, but roll out of the brake quickly. So you can see if you look at the bottom left, look how, okay, I hit a high pressure there, like 70, 80% of the brake, but quite quickly I'm rolling out of the brake. I'm already off the brake by the time I've gotten to this lighter paved section. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is if you're later on the brakes and turn in later, you can't just miss, I say, the groove of the corner. It's kind of cambered in here on the inside, so we want to be in nice and early. The second thing is the speed you carry through this apex and through this corner in general is very important, because until you pick up the throttle in about 2 corners time, this speed you carry is pretty much going to define your speed through the next section, and therefore like your lap time loss. So it's very easy here to lose lap time by just driving it a little bit too safe or not carrying enough speed, and here I'm braking too late. So don't worry too much about braking too late here. Just try and roll as much speed as possible through this left-hander, okay? So going through the left now, you should be meeting the inside curb right here. You can touch this inside curb as well. You can see I kind of just get right next to it. This is pretty much bang on what you want to do. Right meeting over the yellow line, right up next to the curb on the inner side, just at the end of it. So this is your apex point really here. See this point, almost full throttle for me, and then able to bring the car over to the right hand side. Sometimes you might find yourself pushed further over to the right. That's okay, it's not necessarily bad. Sometimes you'll just carry a bit more speed or get a bit out of shape through the left-hander. If you're doing that though, just make sure you still focus on carrying speed through here, and you are going to be a little bit compromised because you can't get fully back over to the right, which is what we do here. In an ideal world, here we are on the right hand side of the track. I'm trying to reposition for this next left-hander, and it's an important corner because the exit's really long, and it's a long corner itself, so a lot of lap time if you're too far to the left here that you can miss out on. Over here, right next to this, a little bit of curbing, pretty much braking where this curb is, right at the end of it. Really light brake here. The biggest thing I found in terms of lap time here is just being soft on the brake. If you over brake here, it'll do 2 things. So if I brake harder right now and I try to brake later, which is kind of, I feel, what it's easy to get kind of sucked into doing. It's just kind of a bit too, easy to do from time to time when you're trying to find lap time and chase lap time, right? So what you really want to do is bring the braking back a little bit, brake a little bit softer, roll more speed. That's the first thing you're going to get out of it. If you brake harder as well, you'll often find here, you'll brake harder, you'll turn the car more aggressively, you'll get on this like cambered bit we're about to go in here with this other bit of paving. The fronts will grip up, and you'll be fighting the rear all the way through the corner. Even when you're getting on throttle, you'll find that you're still kind of fighting the car. I found it's just easier if we bring the braking back a touch, so braking slightly earlier, a bit softer, roll more speed, and just use the steering again. Use the steering, right? Don't worry about having to turn it too much with the brake here. Off the brake, use the steering. The car should rotate on its own, okay? That's just how it is with an open diff and with a car like this. Should turn on its own. You can see here, nicely rotates. Again, meeting right next to the inside curb on the yellow line. Pretty much at this point here, this jagged point on the inside. Car's almost sideways. It should be pretty loose at this point, pretty on the limit if you're on a good lap. You can see here, pretty quickly, I get on the throttle. And that's another thing as well, is if you feel like it's going to slide, which, here, this is what I felt like. Okay, the car's starting to move around now. I'm going to pick up the throttle just a bit, just to kind of settle the rear. Quite quickly up to about 70% and just squeezing it and just slowly applying that last bit. Because if you go straight to full there, this is one of the corners in this car where you will just lose the rear. One of the low speed exits that's quite tricky, so just keep that in mind. But good to get on the throttle early. Use all the curb, even though it's quite high here. You don't want to bottom on this taller part of it, so you don't want to exit too early. So again, that's why it's important to roll the speed through, because that'll stop you from kind of having a moment or getting on throttle way too early because you've overslowed and then running out on the curb and bouncing and stuff like that. Okay, use all the curb there on the exit up to 4th gear. Just keep it on the right-hand side. Just shorten the distance until we get to the end of this slow right curve. Then come out the steering. Just be smooth. Get yourself over to the left-hand side of the track nice and early. Okay. In 6th gear, down to 2nd now for this hairpin. Most challenging part of this corner is just the bump in it. It's got a pretty noticeable bump. Anyone who's driven Sebring on this iRacing track model will know that. So you can see here, there's a dip in the road. Then there's a hump. It goes back up again. And then there's another dip now. So just managing that is quite tricky. So if you just watch Once again, we'll watch it in slow motion first, and then we'll watch it at full speed. So if you just watching this, you can see I hit the brake hard, I kind of come off a little bit on the bump, then I reapply the brake pressure, and I come back off again as I bleed into the corner, right? As I start to turn in. So if you just watch that again at full speed, hard, off a bit, back on, then off as I turn in. So what I'm doing here, because I think a lot of times we felt we can't brake late here, and if you're not holding a lot of brake pressure into the corner, you just understeer like crazy here. This is where the lap time is, okay? All in getting this braking right. So hit the brake hard about now. Just before this 3 set of cones, just after this set of 4 cones, pretty much right in the middle. Hit the brake quite hard, up to 89%, and then just as you kind of reach that amount, you'll have to come out for the bump. So back down, not much. It's like 10-20%, but you can't maintain that 90 to 100% range where we normally want to be in a heavy braking zone with this car because it just locks up on the bump. So get to that high application, come off a little bit, just a little bit, the smallest amount you can get away with, just to stop it locking. Then come back on again once you get over that bump. You'll feel the car grip up again. So you look now, I'm quite late in the braking zone at this point. I'm currently, I've only just changed down to 5th as well. So also delaying that gear change so I'm not moving about on the bump. But I'm just coming towards the 2nd cone marker now. So just keep that in mind. It makes a big difference having that modulation on the brake, similar to somewhere like Zandvoort where there's a bump in a heavy braking zone, okay? I'm able to hold, as a result, really high brake pressure late in the braking zone, which helps me stop the car faster. And apart from that, also I have a lot of weight on the nose, which is important for what we get to in a second, right? Okay, because I've been able to hold more brake pressure, the car's going like this, right? The front's pitched, I've got more weight on the nose. That's going to give me more grip when I turn in. And that's really helpful in the low speed corner like this. So down to 2nd gear. Second part of this corner, once you go into this different piece of tarmac here, this kind of older paving slabs that you get at Sebring, low grip. So when we get onto these, you need to kind of roll off the brake and just start turning into the corner. Again, the corner's kind of cambered. You can see there's a groove on the inside slab here. You can see where this line deviates, this camber in here. If you turn in late here, like out here, like a normal hairpin line and kind of cut back, you'll never make the inside and you'll lose so much time. We need to roll the speed in here. Get the braking done in a straight line already beforehand with the technique we talked about. Once you get to the start of that last entry curb, start turning in. Just come out of the brake, start turning in, get down to 2nd. You can see I cut the inside. I don't care. I'd rather be too tight than too wide here. Get over the inside curb, on throttle nice and early. Then it's all about just controlling the lock, get the lock off as quick as possible, use all the track on the exit initially. And now we're just trying to shorten the line on the exit. Now driving the straight line, just reduce the steering lock, get over to fully to the left-hand side here. Okay, should be able to hold 5th, pretty much on the limiter there. Just easier and more consistent to do so. We don't need to give ourselves that extra downshift, so make sure you're not short shifting up into 6th gear here. Once again, very similar to the previous corner. It's a bumpy braking zone, heavy braking zone. This one's a bit flatter. Yes, it's got a bump in it up here, but it's not so early, so we can kind of smash the brake a lot more initially. You can see I'm hitting about 95% brake pressure there. Able to maintain that for a bit. Down to 3rd gear. This braking zone is very binary in terms of you hit a high pressure in this car, maintain it all the way up until pretty much this marker here, and then you're still going to start turning and just roll off the brake. So it's pretty, like you do your braking and then you do your turning separately. Very little trail braking. You can see I'm doing a little bit here, which is a nice thing to do with this car, but if you trail brake more than this, you'll just get the front locking that I've previously talked about in a lot of the videos with this car. It doesn't like turning and braking at the same time. So just come off the brake when you start turning and carry the speed. Use the steering lock here. I clip the curb here, not a big issue. Again, rather be too tight than too wide. If you miss the apex here, you fall off. We go over this bump and you kind of just get pushed out wide in this off camber section coming up. On throttle nice and early. That's quite important on this corner. If you're not on throttle by the time you go over this little crest, you'll probably lose the rear from carrying the speed. So just try to get some stability with the car, get on throttle nice and early. Even if it's not full throttle, you see here I get onto about 60-70% and then squeeze it onto full. Use all the track there. Keep it tight to the left-hand side. Do not touch either of those left-hand side curbs that you see here. You can do it in GT cars. You cannot do it in this, so don't use those. Don't try to cut those. Keep it to the left. Okay, now we just take the shortest distance, get over to the left-hand side, get the car nice and straight for the braking. See, in line with where we want to turn in. Down to 3rd gear here. It can be 4th, I think, on a better setup or better conditions, but it's just about 3rd in this. just because I was struggling a lot with the front and struggling with turning the car. So this corner tower, really tricky, really tricky. Braking reference is just before this second cone. Again, try and get as straight as possible. Always tricky here because you're kind of loaded as you go into it. So please keep that in mind. So you won't be able to smash the brake pedal like the last few braking zones. You can see I kind of lean onto it. And it's not heavy either. It's about 50% brake pressure. Bumpy, undulating, tricky, and also not that slower corner. So you still want to carry a decent amount of speed. Down to third gear, you can see I've cleared the brake by this point. Once again, we're on the new tarmac, or sorry, the older tarmac, or paving. I'm off the brakes. That's because it gets bumpy here. If you hold the brake here, you'll, well, two things. One, you'll overslow the car, and the second thing is it'll just start moving around in a way you don't want it to. So, clear the brake. You should be able to turn in, again, use the steering lock, commit to using the steering, get as close as you can to this inside curb. If you hit it, it doesn't end too well, right? You can lose a bit of time, but it usually won't spin you out. But you need to practice getting as close to this as possible because this is what makes the difference here. If you play it safe, you'll never be quick. Okay, all the way into this camber, roll the speed. Should be picking up throttle before you've reached this apex curb, okay, before. You won't be able to get to full. You just won't be able to. You'll end up probably understeering initially, so the front will slide, and then you'll get a snap as we go over the crest on exit. Very easy to do in this car, makes it a tricky corner. But just get the part throttle and then squeeze the rest on once you get past the apex. And then try and come off the lock as much as possible. You see I dipped a wheel there, but I was really just trying to get the lock out because it's worth a lot of time if you can get a little bit of steering out. All right, and there's no off track for that. So being smooth now, again, showing the distance up to the run of the next true corner, this high speed sequence coming up. So braking into here, down from 6th to 4th, fifth to 4th. Braking pretty much at this, just before this 2 cone, right? So what you want to do for this right-hander is focus on 2 things, right? One is hooking the car over the curb. So your right tires should be on the inside of this blue and white curb. If you put the floor, so the middle of the car, where the plank is, on this higher part of the curb, you'll bottom out and you'll have issues, right? You'll get the car will get lifted up off the ground. You won't be turning anymore and you'll end up wide. We want to hook the right-hand side tires on the curb only. Okay, so with that as well, we want to roll as much speed as possible. So we just got more speed when we get it hooked up. That's kind of the 2 criterial aims for this corner, right? Down to 4th. Don't worry about braking late here. Again, I much prefer you carry speed, kind of medium brake here. Much prefer you just focus on carrying speed over the curb, get hooked onto the curb. Once you get hooked onto this curb, you can pick up throttle. So here, just as I go towards it, I know the car's going to grip up on the curb, so I can get on the throttle. That helps me rotate the car, keep it towards the right-hand side. I'm not forced all the way out into the left-hand curb. Full throttle now. In 4th gear, you should be looking, you'll never get an off track for this, by the way, looking to get over to this left-hand paving because it really helps open up this exit onto this long straight. You're looking to get your car left as tight as possible to the exit of this curb, so as soon as possible, because that gives us the best possible preparation for this next right-hander, okay? And that's why I don't want you out here at this point. You know, you shouldn't be pushed out that wide. You need to compromise the last corner a little bit and get hooked on that curb, as we talked about, so we can end up coming around the back of this curb here, okay? So coming around the back of this curb here, try and get it positioned out to the right, just as you go kind of off the white line here, outside the track limits, you could say, depending on what your definition of track limits are. A soft brake in 4th gear. I can't emphasize enough to you how important it is to be soft here. If you feel like the front's just sliding, you can't turn in. There's this big bump as well, watch this. But generally, the biggest problem you'll have is, you see this bump here, because we're basically off the track at this point on old airfield paving slabs. Not the nicest thing to be driving a single-seater over, okay? So the car's going to want to lock up. If you have any brake on at this point, see, I've got very little, like we're talking 2% trail braking right now or something like that, less than 5%. The reason why is normally you'd want to brake later into this corner, but with the bumps, you'll start locking on the brake, it'll unsettle the car, and you'll just miss the apex completely, or you'll have a moment. So that's why we need to get it done early, and just have a soft brake, okay? So get it done nice and early, over to the left early, brake nice and soft, roll the speed. Again, the speed you carry into this corner is going to have a massive effect on your exit, so really important. Roll the speed, get off the brake. Pretty much, you see I'm trailing maybe a tiny percent, if any. You should meet this curb. Very similar technique to that previous quick right. Try and get the right tires hooked. Doesn't have to be all the way over this curb because it can kind of upset the rear a bit more, this one. But just get touching the curb, help rotate the car. Get on throttle. Again, pin it, right? Pin it, pretty much. Very quickly so you get no understeer. Again, steering is everything. Keeping some steering lock on will just kill time on this exit. So I'm trying to get it off as quick as possible, even if I drop a little bit of a wheel on the dirt. So, yeah, try and maximize that. Down the straight now, 5th gear, and up into 6th for the last corner now. Very tricky corner, very well-known corner. Braking is quite tricky here because we're turning before we brake, and it's not truly straight for a braking zone. My best advice would be I turn in a preset amount, but you can see here I've turned in off the second last marker there, and I'm pretty much in line with this building that you can see over here. But I'm looking in here, but I'm kind of trying to be at a 45-degree angle to the corner almost. That's the best way I could put it, and trying to get a little bit of a straight section here just to help my braking. So turn a little bit early. Braking now, not a heavy brake. Once again, if you brake heavy here, you just upset the car. You kind of lose grip on this bumpy bit we're coming up to. That's pretty bad. And you'll also just upset the pitch, the balance of the car. So don't brake too hard. You see I'm only braking 25, 30% max, and then I'm off pretty quick. Down to 5th, and then down to 4th gear. You can delay that 4th gear change a little bit. You probably will anyway, having to sell the car. Ideally, you go past the white line here. That's because the two big aims of this corner, which we'll get to in a second. One is to be quite tight to the inside. When we actually get to the let's say the apex of the corner. The other thing that's really important is the angle. So I don't want you facing too much this direction. I want you facing towards the exit as much as possible. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but we'll get to in a second. So off the brakes now. So you see at this point, if you've got the car facing more towards the left, then you have big problems when you get on throttle. You just lose the car, it gets quite unsettled, and you lose a lot of time on the exit. So it's more important here. It's tricky to brake that much later. You can't really brake any later than this here, just because you can see I'm already running risk of running deep into the corner. But just try and delay when you rotate the car. So I let the car run out a little bit, and then I just rotate the car a little bit later. Soft brake. To be honest, if you brake too early and brake too hard, you'll end up too tight. And then you'll have to come with the lock now, you go on the throttle now, and then you're just facing the wrong direction. So if you can brake a little bit later, but more importantly, carry a little bit more speed into the corner, you'll end up taking a wider arc on the entry anyway, and that'll help you on the exit. Just set this up. So you can see I trail in a little bit, off the brake, and then early throttle, really early throttle from me. I'm just trying to keep the car tight to the inside. You can see within about a car width of the inside barrier at this point is the aim. It's bouncing. It's bouncing a lot, which is why I'm on the throttle early, is for this big bump in this section here. If you're not on throttle nice and early, it can be quite tricky to catch the car through here. So that's more to sell the car than anything. And once you get over that bump, try to get off the steering. You might have a bit of a moment on there, but just if you're also finding the car's a bit tricky to control over the bump, it probably means you have too much steering lock on, right? Okay, so it probably means you needed to do more rotating earlier in the corner, or you needed to carry a bit more speed in to give yourself a better angle, one of the two. So full throttle now, try and reduce the steering lock on the exit, ride all the way up to the wall here, and then at the end of a hot lap, keep it on the left-hand side, and that's a lap of Sebring. So that takes us towards the end of the video now. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. And you can also check out the Coach Dave Academy Discord, which is in the YouTube video description. My name's Bart. I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you next week. See ya.